Welcome. Once again, another episode of Heavy in the Paint. Gerald Brown, Sirius XM NBA Radio. You always can see me with my partner, Mr. Bad Boy himself, Rick Mahorn. But my guest tonight is a gentleman, outstanding gentleman. Again, one of those throwback players, NBA champion, Boston Celtic, and Arkansas Razorback, Mr. Joe Kleine. Joe, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining me. I want to get your thoughts and opinion on this Celtics team and what they have been able to do thus far in these NBA playoffs. And how do you compare this current Celtics team and their dominance to that Celtics team that you played on?
Well, first of all, I think, if you include the playoffs, somebody was telling me the other day for the year, they're like 78-20 or something like that. If they win these next two games, they will have won 80 out of 100 games total this year. So they're a phenomenal team with a phenomenal coach. I mean, you can't take that away from them. I think they have depth. I think the additions of Holiday and Porzingis this year really they saw needs that they lacked from the previous 2 years, and I think they hit home runs in their additions this year with Drew Holiday and Porzingis. And Porzingis not being able to go tonight is a blow, but I mean they've been doing it all year without him. So especially in the playoffs. So I just think Holiday is a special player. He gives them that third guy that he's a role player, but he's not a role player. He's a roles player. I mean, he's kind of like, what do you need? You need me to score, I'll score. You need defense, I'll give you that. I mean, so he does so many things for them, and I think he's been great. I think he's very similar to the Celtic good teams of the past. You know, they have, good stars, solid point guard, and then they have really good role players and a deep bench, and they play together. I mean, they don't have an agenda personally when they play. They're like all great teams like the Pistons were in the 80s and in the early 90s, the Lakers. They just get it done. They find different ways to get it done. And I think it's still going to be a really good game tonight. I think Dallas is going to come out swinging, and they're going to really come after them, and it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah. Now, I recently had Dennis Hobson on his show, and I was talking to Hop, and really just, again, the adjustment that it takes in regards to going from an organization that doesn't have an established culture of winning and being able to all of a sudden now shift to an established culture, an environment. And you had that situation going from Sacramento being drafted to now you're smack dab into Boston. Talk about that process of going from, it's almost like night and day, I can imagine. But talk about the adjustment process it was for you.
Well, it was refreshing, Gerald, to be quite honest with you. I remember my good friend who I played with in Sacramento, Eddie Johnson. I remember when he heard I got traded, I remember him calling me, or I saw him somewhere, and I remember him saying, "Welcome to the NBA." The day I got traded to Boston, because unfortunately, when I was in Sacramento, a great town, great fan support, but it was just a very dysfunctional organization at that time. And coming from that, where it was kind of every man for himself, you're trying to survive and do something for your career, to walking into a locker room where it's like, man, they welcome you because they know you can help, and they're interested about one thing and one thing only. They want to win, and they want to win it all, and that's the agenda. That's the only agenda. And if you can help, great. If you can't, get out of the way. And I just found that very, very refreshing.
Yeah. How was it playing with Larry Bird, among others, and what type of story could you give us about Larry?
Well, I mean, he's the best. I mean, trash talk. I mean, everybody talks about his trash talking during the games, but his trash talking away from the from the game to us, and on the bus, and in the locker room, and in the card games, and on and on and on. I mean, it was times 1,000 of what you guys saw, and it was always good. I mean, he could give, but he could take. He was very approachable, very good with the teammates, and just fun to be around. But he had a side to him when it was time to get to work. Man, it was time to get to work, and he was all about having fun, having a good time, but business was business, and that was great to be around because he kept you loose, but he kept you on edge at the same time, and he was working. He was always working. You couldn't get in there before him, and he was always working on his craft, even as great a player as he was, and he set a tone, and that was, as all great players do on great teams, you have one, two, or three guys that are going to set a tone, and everybody else is going to get in line and follow, and that's what Larry did.
Yeah, I've often heard, and I think I was a ball boy for the. I was ball boy for the Knicks, but I also went up to school and I was ball boy for the Celtics around that time. I think you were there. And one of the things I've always wanted to ask you, in terms of when you hear players say, that if I was telling them I was going to have you on the show, he knew his role. He understood what to do. Consummate professional. What does it take for a player to be in a situation to know themselves and be a professional, to know your role and excel at that and not let the ego get in the way? How were you able to handle that and master that?
Well, we all want to be superstars. We all want to be all-stars. We all have that ego, as you hit it right on the head right there. I mean, you have an ego coming in the league, and you want to be the next this or the next that, and you want all this and all that. But there comes a point where you got to accept who you are. I wanted to be a 25-point game scorer. Going up against Patrick, Olajuwon, Shaq, Bob Lanier, that wasn't going to happen. So, I kind of had to say, all right, how do I stick? How can I make this team? How can I get into the lineup? I want to play. I don't want to just be a guy sitting on the bench all the time. I want to play. So how can I find a role or a way to get into the mix so that I can be a part of this? And so that, but again, you got to swallow your pride a little bit, but you got to do what you can do. You can't be who you're not. And again, I wanted to be the next, Larry Bird. Wasn't built, didn't have it, man. And I think you got to accept that. That doesn't mean you're a terrible player. It just means, you're still in the NBA, which is pretty dang good.
Yes.
And you got to look at it that way. You got to find the positives with that. And I think so many guys, what happens is if you let that consume you, that you're not getting to be this and this or what you dreamed of, you start to pout. You start to get a bad attitude, which is going to keep you from working and staying ready. And then when the coach calls you, you're not going to be ready. You're not going to play good. And it's just going to spiral from down there. And so, again, you gotta stay sharp and stay ready and play with an attitude. And then, every now and then you'd raise up and have a good, game, 10, 15, 16 points, get double-digit rebounds. And it was very gratifying, and being on a good team and being able every now and then to do something like that was a lot better than getting 18 points a game on a team that won 19 games. I mean, so, that's the way I looked at it.
Well, you figured it out, because at the end of the day, I think the key word you said was being able to survive and stick, actually, is the word in terms of being able to last. And you did that for quite a career.
Gerald, what you got to do, man, is you got to look around. You got to look around and go, this ain't a bad gig, man.
Not
I
at
might,
all.
I
You
might
know,
want I might want to stick around.
hey, listen, you figured it out. And the interesting thing is, in fact, PJ Armstrong and I was just talking about that, is some guys don't understand and know how to figure it out until it's after the point and after the fact. Now, you were a part of, obviously, history in terms of the Olympic team, the last Olympic team to feature college players to win in the Olympics. How much of that experience helped you with a lot of those great players on that team to be able to transition into the NBA, but also develop that camaraderie in terms of those guys and from a social emotional standpoint in your transition from college to the pros?
Gerald, it was so different back then. You didn't have the exposure you do now. I mean, you might play on national TV 3 or 4 times a year if you're lucky. You didn't have the uh, uh, what they have now, where every game is on national TV, and uh, just the guys that you would hear about, you didn't really see them, and you didn't play with them in the summer. There wasn't all that what there is that there is now, and so coming to the Olympic team and playing with these guys and then the draft was happening while we were in Indianapolis, and I remember. And again, I don't even think we watched it on TV. I don't even know that it was. I mean, I don't know that it was on TV. I can't.
I think it might have been. It really was in infant stages. I
Yeah.
remember it was on TV.
But I mean, they're drafting, Olajuwon, whom I played against at Arkansas, and then Sam Bowie, who was at the Olympic trials, and then it was Michael Jordan, and then so on. And then you knew Patrick Ewing, and then it was Sam Perkins, and all these guys we were playing against every day, and so I think I think it gave you confidence to where, hey, I can be drafted too, and I can, play at the next level, and then playing against these guys and having moderate success against them kind of gave you confidence going into your senior year in college that you were a very good player, one of the better players in the country, and I know that it helped me go and have a really good senior year because I practiced against the best of the best for 3 months in the summer, and there's no way that could do anything but help me.
Yeah, I mean, it really was amazing and stuff. Back then, Joe, were you able to tell Michael Jordan's greatness? Like, what was that experience of seeing him in those Olympic trials and being a part of that Olympic team?
Well, I mean, Gerald, anybody who says that he was going to become what he became, and they knew that, I'm like, I don't think anybody, but we all knew that he was going to be an NBA All-Star. He was going to be a top player in the NBA. Now, him becoming the GOAT, I mean, I don't know that anybody foresaw that. No, and so, but again, you knew he was different, man. He was different. He was wired, very competitive. Talent beyond what you could believe. But I think what made him different, and Alvin Robertson, a teammate of mine that was on the team, was kind of wired like Mike. I mean, he just they just, and watching them two go at it every day in practice was just amazing. And I had great respect for Alvin Robertson because I saw it every day with Alvin Robertson. So I didn't think there was anybody like Alvin Robertson. Going into the Olympics, I was like, there's no dude wired like this dude. Well, yes, there is. There is, and it was Michael Jordan. And then on top of that, no disrespect to Alvin, but the basketball talent that Michael had with the drive, was, we saw what we ended up seeing what that turned into. I mean, just the GOAT.
Yeah. How much of a difference was it? Because I think you faced him in the NBA Finals in the '99 with the Suns.
No, that was 93 was the Suns, and
The Suns.
I was with Boston. My next year, yeah, 93, 92, 93, they played the Suns. I got to the Suns in 93, 94.
Okay, so when you saw him in Boston and at that having the years on him and won a championship, how much of a difference was MJ from what you witnessed in the Olympic trials and playing with him on the Olympic team?
None. I mean, he brought it, man, every night. I mean, you could count there, as we always say, there's not a lot of things in this world that you can count on. You could count on Michael Jordan bringing it, and he brought it every day in practice too. I mean, he was just driven. Larry Bird was like that, but he had injury issues. But those two guys are two of the most driven human beings that I've ever been around. I mean, they wanted to play and go at it and go at you every day, and they did it in games and they did it in practice, and it was. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it was utterly amazing to the effort because I mean, I was a guy that, like we talked about, I had to stay ready and I would run and do extra work and things like that. And I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that I'd get to the gym early and, Larry would already be there. Michael would be there. I mean, and they played 40 minutes the night before. They had played all night, every night. And so, I might have played 5. I might not have played at all, and I was coming in early and, I couldn't beat them to the gym. And they were, and that's why they were such great leaders and great, great players. I mean, they were relentless.
Yeah. When you look at today's game, Joe, when you look at today's game and look at what you were asked to do back then, today you're probably a guy that's stepping out, shooting threes, and
Oh,
doing
yeah.
even more. What are your thoughts on today's game specifically, and how the big man's role has been sort of shifted more so?
Well, I mean, it's when we played, it was an inside out game. Now it's an outside in game. And so my training, if I was coming out now, would be totally different. I mean, I would be learning how to handle the ball. I would be learning how to shoot threes. Those things would be more paramount. I would be in the pick and roll uh, in high school. I didn't do any pick and roll till I got to the NBA when I was in college, and uh, I would be doing it in AAU and probably in junior high uh, now, and learning how to pick and pop and put it on the floor if somebody closed out on me. And so I would have trained and learned how to play a totally different game. But I do not like the fact that uh, size in basketball is an advantage.
Yes.
Okay. And regardless, inside out, outside in, size is an advantage. And I cannot stand guys, especially now in the pick and roll, when they switch and they switch. And I mean, they'll switch a 2 guard onto a 7-footer, and they don't take him down and throw the ball in there and just punish those guys, for that, or a big guy will pick and pop and have a guard on him. I mean, that drives me nuts. Somebody asked me the other day if I thought the big guy from Purdue would be any good, Edie. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, if they use him, they throw him, they had him standing out there at the 3-point line, and let guys switch on him and then never throw him the ball. That's why I love the Joker. I mean, he'll pick and pop, he'll shoot the 3, but he's learned how to drive the ball, use his size, and that's why I think he's so effective. And that's why I like watching him play. He's got a little old school game to him, and so I mean that bothers me. In that I I don't mind bigs being able to shoot, but if you're 7 foot and all you're going to do is spot up and shoot threes, you might as well be 6'2". I mean, it's there's no difference.
Yeah. A couple more questions before I let you get on out of here, Joe. And that's a great insight. I mean, there's perhaps a guy in Minnesota that a lot of people are clamoring. If it's not one, maybe two of them, you could really make that case for. When you talk about the evolution of the big that now plays outside in, do you ever think that we would have a situation where we would get back to the big man playing with perhaps maybe not as back to the basket, but more or less on that block, tacking the basket? Do you think that we would get back to that, or is it basically here to stay? 7'4" like Wembanyama stepping out, shooting threes, and living out on the perimeter.
I don't think it'll ever go all the way back. The 3-point line analytically is too much of a. I mean, it's here and it's proven to make a huge difference in games, and it can be a very big equalizer if you have supreme size against a smaller team. The 3-point line has negated all that size advantage. So, but again, I think teams who use it wisely, use their bigs wisely, can really create advantages not only at the free throw line, get teams in foul trouble. It will also help, like you brought up Towns. I mean, when he's struggling, and they're switching and everything, man, go down there and get a guard on you and get an easy one. Go down there and get fouled. So, I mean, once you see that ball go through the hoop a couple times, that 3-point shot's going to be a little bit easier because you're not going to be pressing. But It seems like sometimes it's like, well, I've missed 5 in a row. I'm going to keep shooting till I make it. Well, I mean, they give you an extra point for a reason. I mean, it's a harder shot. I mean, they give you an extra point. So try to go down there, especially if they're switching, and take advantage, get something easy, get yourself back into the game instead of just hammering the three. Again, I think Jokic just does a great job. And then I think they do a great job with a big guy at the high post on the switch. Mm-hmm. Even if he stays at the high post, if you start cutting guys and moving guys, the bigs can see, their line of sight is going to be so much easier, and their ability to pass the ball from up there is going to be so much better because of their size advantage. So, I don't think it's going to go back to throwing it down there and punishing people. But, I mean, I hope that it gets to where some of these hybrid bigs will be hybrids and go down every now and then and use what God gave them, their size.
Yeah, that is. And last question, Joe, before I let you get on out of here. The NBA lost a legend. We all lost a great, talented, and really smart individual. And he comes to basketball. The logo himself, Mr. Jerry West. Your thoughts on Jerry West and the life of this NBA player icon?
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody knew who he was. He was an iconic figure, and then, not just as a player, he also did it as an executive and an ambassador. I think he was just a great overall, help to the NBA. I think he was the type of guy, I know for a fact that a lot of things that happened behind the scenes that nobody knows about, he was involved in. And I just think his knowledge, him being with the Lakers, a big market team, and being able to get Magic Johnson and having the foresight to get Kobe and bring Shaq and get the Showtime Lakers with Kareem and then bringing it back with Kobe and them. I mean, that was worth billions of dollars to the NBA. I mean, billions, because having a team like that in LA, you can't write a better script than that.
Yeah. And obviously, I said last question. I'm going to sneak this one in here. When you look back on your career, what is your biggest takeaway?
Man, just fortunate, lucky.
You were talented. Don't show.
No. But again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about right off the bat. I mean, we all wanted to be NBA All-Stars. We all wanted to be the face of our team and things like that. But that can't happen. That happens to a very few, and they are gifted and better than all of us. But just to be able to stick for 15 years and then to get to play with the cats I got to play with, man, I sit back and think about it. I played with Jason Kidd. I played with, I played with Shaq. I played with Kobe. I played with MJ. I played with Pippen. I played with Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith. Just I can't think of all of them. But I mean, it's just Detlef Schrempf, Sabonis, Rasheed Wallace. I mean, just all these great guys that I got to play with and be friends with and be in a locker room with. You just feel very fortunate to be a part of that fraternity. And, that's the thing you miss the most, man. You miss the games and the excitement and everything, but the practices and the locker room and the bus rides and the plane rides and the card games and the giving each other hell in the locker room about everything and being in the tunnel in a playoff game on the road and getting ready to run out, or in Philadelphia when you're with the Celtics and everybody's wanting your, throwing stuff at you and stuff. And those are things you can't, those things happen. And then when they're gone, you can't replicate those things, and just fortunate to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I really, really want to say first and foremost, followed your career. Definitely seeing you play in the Olympics and obviously seeing you play in the NBA. And I always can say, just like a lot of the people, first class individual, and I applaud you for all that you have done. And you definitely represented Will Pig Suey.
That rolls off your tongue so natural, man. It just you could be an Arkansan. You might be a long lost Arkansan and didn't even know.
No. Hey, listen, I'm from New York, but you know what? My good friend and good family member Penny Hardaway is over at Memphis. Okay. So I know Memphis and Arkansas. Those rivalries back in the days. It was a big thing and stuff, and so definitely I know the history of Arkansas and such great basketball players, and to come from that program, so yeah. Woo,
I won't let Penny know that came off your lips, man. We'll keep it quiet.
Joe, listen, really appreciate you taking a few moments out of your time. All the best, and definitely look forward to getting you back on Sirius XM NBA Radio with Rick and I.
Thank you, Gerald. Tell Rick. Next time I see him, I'm gonna punch him in the face. I owe him more.
Hey, listen. I'll give you $100 if you do it for me. I want to punch him in his belly button.
All right, man.
Thanks a lot.
Good, Gerald. All right, man.
Always.
Yep.